Right. So what are the five? The Panchataya, Vrittaya, Panchataya. What are the five? Pramana, valid knowledge. Now see, when we say that is valid knowledge, what do we mean? I'll talk more about it, but let's briefly cover it. When we say that is pramana, now pramana would normally be that is proof, that is valid knowledge, that is valid cognition, valid understanding. That is when we say, oh, but that is proof. Do you have any proof? Here is the proof. Then we feel very happy about it. Yes, now I have proved the other person wrong, which is actually the reason for happiness. Not that you are right, but that the other person is wrong is the reason why pramana is so valued. So pramana, he says, that can be kleshta, akleshta. It can be an affliction. How do you know? When you think that something is pramana, that is why in science they say that according to our knowledge up to this point, this seems to be what is going on. But tomorrow maybe there will be some other discovery and it will be. So every theory is held to be true up to the point of falsibility. Can you prove it wrong? For hundreds of years, the Newtonian theory of gravity and the universe was there until the Einsteinian theory came along and changed it. So that falsibility is very important, and it is not to do with, that is not a rational argument, because at least subatomic physics has left reason behind a long time back. It is to do with what is demonstrable, what is replicable. So we'll get into that, but this whole thing of pramana, I found it so extraordinary, because most people, what they think is, it is proof, no, pramana, no, it is valid knowledge, no, it is correct knowledge, no. How can correct knowledge be akleshta? How can it be an affliction? See, we are great admirers of correct knowledge in other people, and so long as it happens not in our family. If it happens in our family and the person is called Siddhartha Gautama and he is abandoning his wife and his newborn child, then there is suddenly an issue. But he had the pramana that this, sitting in this royal palace, living this life, I am never going to find the secret of suffering. Idam khopana bhikkhave dukkham arya satyam. He wanted to find the key to suffering. So, what he did, is that pramana or not? World religion all over Asia, everybody, so many thousands of enlightened beings have been created by him. Was it kleshta or akleshta? For him, being married was probably kleshta. Being a prince was probably kleshta. So, that is where the greatness of Patanjali comes in. He is aware that you cannot jump to these conclusions so easily. What you consider to be final proof may not be so, or it may have such terrible consequences that it goes right back into chittavritti. How did he define kleshta? Kleshta was defined as bandhana phala. Bandha phala, anything that causes further bandhan, is a klesh. So here is something, and only somebody like Patanjali has the guts to say that valid knowledge can end up creating bandhan. It can create, for instance, splitting the atom and making the atomic bomb. Of course, that is pramana. Was that worth it? It can create bandha phala. We know it is one of the most greatest blunders that mankind has made, yeah? Because any one man, it almost happened sometime in the 1980s. There was a malfunctioning in the Russian radar and they thought that America had launched nuclear missiles. And if you don't respond within a certain window, you will get wiped out. And one man who was in charge of that time, he just said, no, this has to be an equipment malfunction. There is no reason. Does anybody even know of that man today? He was a Russian guy. Just because of him, others there would have been a retaliatory strike and that was it. The planet would have been ruled by cockroaches at the moment. We were that close. So here is a pramana that is very clearly in kleshta, it is not. So, people are very happy sometimes that I have proved my point or I have come to the correct understanding. Does that correct understanding lead to a transformation in consciousness, or are you just using it for your chitta vritti? You see, there's this guy called Sam Harris. He's very famous. He's an atheist. He basically goes around the world debating religious people, taking access to their arguments. But he said something that was very interesting. He said that it is a scandal that debate and argument does not change anybody's mind, because for 500 years that has been the Western method, that you debate and then you change your mind. And he said it doesn't change anybody's mind. In science it is well known that a new theory can succeed only when the old lot of people who are opposing die out. Just like in India, we couldn't do anything about our stupid economic ideas because all the people who were socialists and committed to it, they had to become old and senile and dead before we could think of changing the way we structure our society, at least in economic terms. So pramana, which is normally, the overeager people rush into pramana and say, that is good, no, that is a positive modification of the mind. But Patanjali is like, all modifications are all modifications are troublesome. Are you sure? Are you sure? Viparyaya, misconception, or actually misconception mein kya hai? It's not even misconception. It is the viparaya does not mean only misconception. It means that if somebody has a point of view, it is inevitable there will be another point of view. We know what happens then. Yeah? Nobody kills another person. Nobody, it's not about right and wrong. It's always about a difference of opinion, yes? I have one idea about reality, you have another idea about reality. Both of them are talking about what happens when we die. Do we go to a heaven or do we? Neither of them have any clue about the matter, but they are willing to launch wars with each other. Sometime in the 1950s, two countries went to war over a World Cup match. I think Ecuador and Bolivia, because there was so much heat about a World Cup match, and so they actually went to war. So, there are I'll talk about all this in more detail next week. But the fact is, viparaya, it's just an innate tendency in the human being. Yeah, there was, I forget who, but there was a philosopher whose motto was, whatever it is, I am against it. Because the whole point was, if everybody accepts something as being pramana, there is the need for little viparaya. One must challenge that status quo. So Patanjali was like 4,000-5,000 years back, and he had an understanding of the human mind which is unmatched. The minute everybody thinks this is pramana, for instance, it was pramana that the earth is flat and the sun goes around the earth. The sun goes around the flat earth. That was the accepted knowledge. That was the accepted. Galileo had a viparaya. Lots of kleshta. Today we laugh at them. Yeah, but please understand, all the intellectual, all the learned people, the entire society was sure that this man is insane. George Bernard Shaw ke St. John mein, there is a thing where one of the bishops is talking about an ancient Greek philosopher who had the same idea. And he asked the bishop, one of the characters asked the bishop, so who was this fellow? And he said he was Pythagoras. He was a sage who believed that the earth was round and went round the sun. And that person is a soldier, so he says, what an utter fool, couldn't he use his eyes? You know? So the so-called commonsensical approach we know is perception may be completely wrong. Perceptual reality, viparyaya. So as soon as there is pramana, there is almost always also viparyaya. There will be an opposition to it. Now, from a commonsensical point of view, correct. What an utter fool. Couldn't he use his eyes? Today we find that very funny because we know, contrary to what our eyes show us, but Patanjali was saying that a long time back. Just because there is pramana, just because there is viparyaya, don't get committed to either of them. That is a scientific attitude. Don't get committed to anything merely because it is popular. Don't get committed to anything merely because it seems to be a good talking point. So now you know why your children become all difficult in adolescence, because you are pramana, they are viparaya. Vikalpa, conceptualization or verbal definition. When we this is a very common trap, by the way, when we think we understand something and we give it a label. More interestingly, when we do not wish to understand something and we give it a label first, because then it becomes a shortcut to thought. This business of labeling is one of the standard propaganda tricks, All of them are like that. That group, community, whatever. They are dirty, they are filthy, they are violent. Yeah? Vikalpa. There is no need to think only anymore, because that label has created an entire boundary, has created an entire parameter of certain acceptable prejudices. Is this not the standard problem in the world today? And he was saying that time, 4,000, 5,000 years back, he was saying, this is a trap. If you find yourself in Vikalpa, you are falling, you are going back into Chittavitta. So I am consistently saying, people can talk all they want. Patanjali did. Patanjali just got hold of the human psyche, he just got hold of the way humans behave, and he just laid it out. The next one is Nidra. Nidra is sleep. Sleep is bad? Yes, for yogi, sleep is very bad. Yeah. Why is sleep bad in yoga? Very obvious reason. It is unconsciousness. So, when a yogi is happiest? When they no longer are sleeping, they are observing themselves sleeping. When the witness, the Sakshi Bhava kicks in, because sleep also has problems in that sleep creates dreams. Dreams can create new desires, dreams can create fears, you're afraid you're dying, you're afraid you're falling, you're afraid snake has come to bite you. And all those things go into your chitta and causes vritti. Yeah? And then you start doing actions. And then you have vasana samskara. So, deal with it. Agami karma now. So, Nidra, it's very interesting because all the other things we understand, fine. We should not fall into that. We should not fall in Nidra. And he is very clearly saying, sleep. So, when he says Nidra, you have to ask yourself, right, so what? Too much sleep, without sleep we can't function? How much of the sleep becomes akleshta, at what point does sleep go into kleshta? If you oversleep, you get a headache. Because there is a natural time when the body is rested and you wake up, unless you are exhausted or you're drugged or something. But sleep is basically not a conscious state. And while it is true that the conscious state of the mind is nothing great to write home about, it is at least better than the sleeping stage. But most people love that unconsciousness so much that they will take drugs, they will take alcohol. Yeah, which is why, George Bernard Shaw used to say that I am not interested in happiness because I have neither the time nor the taste for such comas which can be purchased at the price of a glass of alcohol. And most people say they are happy, it means that the mind is not functioning. There is a higher way to get your mind to not function. There is a yogic way, not a drugged way, not a way to. So sleep, Nidra in that sense, stands for all the non-consciousness. Not just sleep, because sleep has so many problems associated with it, which is why yogis always, they are anti-sleep, Too much sleeping is always one of the, sleepy. And then memory, smarthayah. Now, memory is what gives us personality. Memory is what holds us from one moment to the other. And then you have movies like Gajni, which shows what happens when a person loses the memory, yes, or memento. But do you remember our affirmation? I vow that from this moment onward, nothing shall, will enter my, no thought, pura affirmation, no thought of death, disease, decay, senility, old age. Do you remember, he doesn't say enter my mind. Did you notice that? Yeah, because it is impossible to prevent those things from entering the mind. If you live in the world, somewhere or the other, those things will come crashing into your awareness, to your attention. It will come. The problem is it starts going and modifying your chitta only if it enters your smriti, if it enters your memory. So your memory becomes your reason for kleshta, akleshta. I don't think people, okay, I guess they do have happy memories, but usually when people start reminiscing, you know what is going to happen. It's a whole dukhad avastha, you will hear whole Ramayana and Mahabharata on it. Yeah. When people repeat what they remember, when people repeat, what is the percentage? What is the normal percentage? Sad things, traumatic things, because they are more intense. Because sad and traumatic things are more intense, so they burn themselves deeper into the memory. Again, our energy has to become so intense that trauma cannot burn itself into our smriti. Our internal prana shakti should be so great that a traumatic event cannot leave the imprint that it leaves on normal memories. Because he is telling you memory is a reason. Kleshta, akleshta, panchata, and he said sleep. Anybody else would say, "Arey, it will dishearten people. Let us leave that bit about sleep." We will privately communicate that to them. But he put it down. And memory is a layer deeper than sleep. Because when you put the person into hypnosis, when the person is sleeping, it is from your memory that you are creating all these scenarios. No? Your dreams are created from your memory. So it is not true that when you become enlightened, your memory stops, but to a large extent, many things you stop bothering about. Because we carry it around, we remember the pain, we remember the suffering, we remember the hurt, we remember all the small things that happen to us, we remember, and we don't realize each time we activate that neural pathway, chitta vritti is happening, one more step into kleshta. So how people ever get to the end of this book is something that has bewildered me, because each time he says, "Acha, you want to advance, okay?" Yeah, let me show you a few of the tigers and the snakes on the path. And if you have a good memory, you are very much socially validated for it. People are very deeply impressed. Yeah, tremendous memory. Not having a good memory is actually one of God's blessings. If you can forget, I can't. I neither forget nor forgive. I won't act on it, but he's just extraordinary. This man is just, there is absolutely nothing like him in the entire world, ever. This was a complete mind-blowing breakthrough and that is the word, mind-blowing. The mind was exploded and the boundaries of consciousness were expanded by this one man. So it's just something that how do you move forward? Every word you think, okay, what is he saying here? What does he intend? What is he communicating? What are we to grasp before we move on? And it's not even like we grasped it and move on. Each time we got to keep linking back. We got to keep coming back to Atha Yoga Anushasanam, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Whatever he says, we have to keep coming back to that. So you're never allowed to lose that foundation. You're never allowed to wander around into your fancies, and it's just an extraordinary business. It's just an extraordinary business. And that is the reason why it is not popular, because it's so much easier to get people doing asana, get people doing pranayama, get people doing mantra japa, take them on pilgrimage, anything to run away. Anything to run away from klishta, yes? Do something, anything rather than face myself, anything rather than face my reality. So, one more time, chapter 1, verse 5, vrittaya panchatya klishta aklishta. The fluctuations of the vritti, the vritti are the fluctuations of the chitta. There are 5 kinds. They are of affliction or non-affliction, painful or non-pleasant, pleasant or non-pleasant. Chapter 1, verse number 6, Pramana, viparyaya, Vikalpa, Nidra, smarthayah. Those are the 5 kinds of. Yes, next week we will talk about each one of these. Pramana, viparyaya, Vikalpa, Nidra. I think people will now remember, am I in Pramana or am I in Vikalpa? And tell your children, okay, Vikalpa, we understand. Okay? Sarvam Shamyam.